Hey guys, KHCloud here with a bit of a different video this time. I'm going to be doing my predictions for NXT Takeover and Wrestlemania 33. All written down here in my nice little handy little notebook. That kind of includes the match order. Like I'm going to be saying, the order in which I say the predictions is going from the first match to the last match for both shows. So the first match for NXT Takeover Orlando is going to be Sanity versus Ty Dillinger, Roderick Strong, No Way Jose, and Ruby Riott. I think Sanity wins this match. I think that they're preparing to give them all the titles in either the next pay-per-view after this or the pay-per-view after that. The NXT Takeover. I guess they're not technically considered pay-per-views, but they kind of are. They're kind of NXT pay-per-views. I think Young will grab the NXT title. I think Dane and Wolf will grab the tag titles, and I think Nikki Cross will grab the women's title. The next match in the NXT Takeover Orlando schedule is Alistair Black versus Andre Cien Almas. This is one of those matches that they have all the time where basically they have some guy premiering and he beats some jobber. And Andre Cien Almas isn't really a jobber, not in the sense that Ty Dillinger was. Obviously, in a lot of these cases, Ty Dillinger was the one people would premiere against. But I still think Andre Cien Almas is going to lose. I feel bad for him because I actually like him. I think he's a good wrestler. For whatever reason, he's not getting over with the crowd. But I think Alistair Black obviously wins this one. That's what everyone's expecting. It's exactly how they always book it. If Almas wins it, I will be very surprised. The next match, I think, will be AOP versus DIY versus the Revival. I think the Office of Pain got to keep it. Although I think DIY will remain on NXT for a while. I think some people want them to be called up, but I don't think they're quite ready. I think the Revival have been ready for a long time. And I was kind of hoping on Smackdown that they were going to let American Alpha keep the titles until the Revival got brought up. But maybe for some reason they're not ready to bring up the Revival yet. I don't know why, but that's kind of what I was thinking was going to happen because American Alpha and the Revival have a long rivalry. Or either that or, the Revival's going to be going to Raw. The next match in NXT TakeOver Orlando is going to be Asuka versus Ember Moon. And this one is probably the closest to a toss-up out of all of these matches. Asuka's had the title for a while, and Ember Moon is one of those people that they're really, really building up. And they kind of have cast Asuka in this heel light recently because I think they want Ember Moon to be a face. And Asuka's kind of always been like, a little bit of a tweener. She'll fight the heels more than she fights the faces, but really, she doesn't carry the way. Which in my opinion is kind of the definition of a tweener. I expect Asuka to win this match mainly because I think Asuka is going to keep her undefeated streak until she gets to the main roster, and I don't think she gets to the main roster till like a month before SummerSlam. So I think she'll lose it to Nikki Cross at TakeOver Brooklyn, possibly in a triple threat. Because, you still want Ember Moon to kind of be here and be the person building up. But I think you also want to do a bit of a Bayley type situation with her where you keep the title out of her reach until she gets it in that one magical moment. And there's a lot of storyline potential in having Nikki Cross have the title and all of the members of Sanity, like I said before, because it becomes like a takeover, almost a little bit like a NWO type situation. So I think that's actually really good because I really do like Sanity. I like that they've given Wolf something to do because I've seen him in a few matches before in NXT and he really didn't do anything, but he was a good wrestler. There's just nobody cared about him, and now people actually care. So I'm glad they've done that with him. The last match is obviously going to be Rude versus Nakamura. It's the NXT title. It's got to close the show. The one at San Antonio was great, so I imagine this match is also going to be great. I expect Rude to win will be no title changes for NXT on this show, but NXT is kind of in a holding pattern anyways, so it makes sense not to change the title right now. they're still trying to build up people, and when you want to build up someone big, you have to give them that kind of storyline and also a giant to conquer. And that's kind of, that's kind of what Rude is going to become if you give him, at least 6 months. Although I think until SummerSlam's in August. So that gives you, 7 months with Rude having the title. That's a good build up for him. I think it's good. Same thing with AOP. It'll be 7 months. Maybe AOP will beat Sanity. It's hard to say. But I do think that all those titles are going to change hands at NXT Takeover Brooklyn, because I think they want to make, and I think Sanity will keep it for probably another 6 to 9 months, if not longer. Like all of them keeping those titles, but we'll kind of see. And now for the show of shows, the big show, WrestleMania 33. They've already revealed what their pre-show is going to be. I disagree with some of the pre-show options, but I understand why they did it. I mean, it's really hard because you don't want any of your titles to look small, but all of their non-title matches have had pretty good builds to them. Seth Rollins and Triple H has had a pretty good build. Shane and AJ have done a good job with what they've been given. I wasn't really that into the idea of Shane versus AJ until AJ threw Shane's head through a car window. I thought, all right, this is actually going to be pretty good. They've done a good job promoting that. Same thing with Cena, Nikki Bella, Miz, and Maurice. I mean, who would have cared about that match when it was first announced? But Miz and John Cena have really made people care about that match. They've done really excellent promo work, and really everyone in that match has done excellent promo work. So they've made me actually kind of care a little bit. Taker versus Reigns I don't care about, but, it's Taker. So Undertaker has to have that big match. He can't not have that big match, so he's got to be in there. So, unfortunately, the Cruiserweight title and the SmackDown Women's title, strangely, even though the hometown girl is probably going to win that, maybe, that's my prediction at least. I kind of spoiled that, but, still, it's a big deal. It's a big... Those titles actually kind of mean something. Like, I care more about what happens to the SmackDown Women's title than I do care about what happens to the Raw Women's title. So, but whatever, they decided to put it on the pre-show. The first match on the pre-show is probably going to be the Andre the Giant Battle Royale. At least in my opinion, it should be, because there's no title attached to it. And I think Braun Strowman wins that. I could see maybe someone sneaking in a victory. If it's Mojo, the fans will probably riot, which not be a good way to start the show. But I could also see Sami Zayn getting away with it, in which case the fans would be, really high on that. I would be pretty high on that if he kind of snuck in a victory at the last second against Braun Strowman. But really, after Braun lost to Reigns, he needs this to regain his momentum. So I really hope they give it to Braun Strowman. Next match is going to be probably Neville versus Austin Aries. I know a lot of people want to see Austin Aries win. I think Neville's going to win. I think Neville is a great champion. He's a great heel champion for that. And I know that Aries could be a great champion as well, and has been in the past. But Aries is the older guy here, and I feel like he would be more willing to lose this match to keep Neville kind of over. I think, Neville needs to beat someone like Aries to kind of give more value to that title. SmackDown Women's match, which is I'm going to have to definitely read off this sheet. So it's got Alexa, Becky Lynch, Natalya, Mickie James, Carmella, and Naomi so far. There have been rumors of Tamina, which, she's on the SmackDown Women's roster, and she's technically healthy, so that should happen by Daniel Bryan's own rules, but who knows where the company kind of sits on Tamina at the moment. There's been rumors of Kelly Kelly. There's been rumors of Maria Kanellis. There's been rumors of Lita. I think even Trish was mentioned. Like, basically, everyone who the WWE doesn't hate and who is, a woman wrestler in the past. They're willing to kind of bring back. I don't think they're going to, though. I think the big thing that they're bringing all of them back for is going to happen later in the show. I don't think it's for this match. Simply because, I mean, at 7 women, that's a lot. Which is where I think it's going to end up. And none of those returning women are going to win. So, and also, it's on the pre-show. Like, if you're going to have, all these big returns, these big name people coming in, why would you put it on the pre-show? I don't think you would. So, I think Naomi's going to win that. I think that's going to be the last match going into WrestleMania 33, the main show, because I think that they want that kind of, high in the audience from seeing the hometown girl win her title. I think it should happen on the main show, but it's not going to because they've already announced on the pre-show. So I think it's going to be basically the warming up match for the main show. To start the main show, I think they're going to have the match with probably the least amount of build, although it may end up being the best match of the night. Who knows, but it's a ladder match. In the past couple of WrestleManias, ladder matches have been pretty good. This time it'll be a triple threat tag team ladder match. Unless, maybe the Hardys join in. But they won't probably have their broken gimmick, because I've heard some stuff recently saying that WWE, because of the kind of legal situation, doesn't really want to use the broken gimmick right away. I think what they might do is they might, redo that whole kind of TNA storyline where, Matt and Jeff fight and then Matt becomes broken and all that, which would kind of become boring for anyone who's watched the TNA stuff already, which is a lot of people. I think there are less casual fans into wrestling than WWE realizes. And so a lot of those people, or even the people who, they would, traditionally consider casual, probably have seen some of Matt's stuff on TNA recently. So repeating it would kind of be but they did that also with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and NXT, and again did the same storyline, and in good fashion, nonetheless, with Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho. So who knows? Regardless, though, that match, as it stands, is the Club versus Enzo and Cass versus Cesaro and Sheamus for the Raw Tag Team titles. I think the winner is going to be Enzo and Cass. They're the faces. They're going to win. You have 2 faces winning back-to-back to start off WrestleMania. Great. I think the Hardys could join in. I'm not sure if they would win, though. Because, again, if they want to set up that broken stuff, they probably want to do it early. So maybe, maybe Jeff or Matt costs one or the other the victory, and so they don't win in that sense. The next match, I think, will be Jericho versus KO. I know it seems kind of early for that, but it's really hard to kind of pace out these matches. And one of the later matches that you might see in this position, I think is going to be a title change. And if you just had the Raw Tag Team titles change, I don't think you want to follow it up with another title change, like right away. I mean, that would be 3 in a row when you include the pre-show. So I do think they want to avoid that. So anywho, the U.S. title match, Chris Jericho versus Kevin Owens, one of the best builds for the year. I think it goes to Chris Jericho. I know we would want Kevin Owens to win this traditionally, but storyline-wise, that'd be kind of shit, especially because Jericho's going to be gone in a month. So he's still got like a month after WrestleMania, and then he'll be gone. And that's part of the reason why I think he'll win this. Is because for storyline reasons, you want the face to conquer at WrestleMania in this case. You want Jericho to win and, have that kind of happy moment. So, yeah. I think he wins it in this pay-per-view, and then I think at the next pay-per-view, Kevin Owens wins probably with the help of Samoa Joe, further reinforcing the idea that Kevin Owens can't win on his own, which I think is a storyline they'll continue probably through next year's WrestleMania until eventually he wins the title on his own without help. The next match after this, I think, will be Cena and Nikki Bella versus The Miz and Maurice. I gotta go with The Miz and Maurice winning this. I know, you do want the faces to win this kind of stuff, but Cena's going away, and The Miz has been incredible recently. His promos have been amazing. I think you want to give The Miz this victory at WrestleMania, and then down the road at SummerSlam or Survivor Series, whenever John Cena returns, I think you give Cena the victory then. Maybe, when The Miz has the IC title, you have him lose at SummerSlam to John Cena, and that way Cena kind of has a big IC title reign like he did with the US title and made it feel so valuable. I think that would be pretty good. Especially because the IC title right now, for whatever reason, Ambrose hasn't defended it in the past month. Speaking of the IC title, the next match is probably going to be the IC title match. And the reason I want to push this so late in the show is because I do think this will be a title change. I think Corbin wins. I know it's quite a ways down the card for Ambrose to go. But he'll probably get involved in the world title picture pretty shortly. Considering Cena will be gone, so Ambrose might become the top face. But Corbin, I think, is really good. I think he deserves this. And so I think they're going to give it to him at WrestleMania. They're going to give him the IC title reign, and that's going to lead into a big 2017 for him, hopefully. So I think at this point it's typically where they put an intermission match. My dream for this is that it'll be the New Day versus Broken Matt Hardy and Jeff, right? That's my dream. I don't know if that'll happen. And if it did happen, then I want the Hardys to win, because you could kind of do this angle where, like, Broken Matt is now the host of the show. And that is just comedy gold. But, again, we don't even know if the Hardys are going to be at this or if they're going to be at the Raw after WrestleMania or SmackDown after WrestleMania, depending on which brand they go to. So the other possibility that I think, because I do think the New Day are going to get a match, and I do think it'll be an intermission match, and the more likely scenario is, especially after SmackDown, where it seems like Harper kind of came under Wyatt's control again, and Rowan is technically healthy now, is you have Harper and Rowan. I know Rowan in an unannounced match again, but, I mean, those guys need to get their WrestleMania paychecks, and they're not in anything else so far, so it makes perfect sense. You have Harper and Rowan versus the New Day. You have the New Day win. Because it could be a little bit of, like, especially if you do have Wyatt out for this, because maybe he does come out. It could be a bit of Xavier Woods conquering that kind of fear that he's had of Wyatt in the past and the Wyatt family in the past, and you have that happen at WrestleMania, and it becomes a big moment. Everyone cheers, yay! So I think that's the more likely thing, is the New Day versus the Wyatt family, Harper and Rowan in this case, probably Wyatt as a manager or whatever, because he could wrestle twice in the show, but why would you have Wyatt wrestle twice in the show? That's just not smart. So I think, that'll be the intermission match. Then the next match, I think, will actually be Taker versus Reigns. This is kind of early. It's out of the three big non-title matches, Taker's is almost usually the last to go on, but in this case, I think it should be the first, because I think Reigns wins. Not only do I think Reigns wins, I think he crushes him. I think he absolutely destroys Taker. It's basically like a squash match, and it's a Reigns heel turn. I know he actually does pretty good merchandise sales. But I think for storyline reasons and where we've heard the Reigns stuff going, I think you have him turn heel now. I think you have him kind of become a bit like Randy Orton's Legend Killer thing, because if he destroys Taker, even worse than Lesnar did, then it sets up that whole Lesnar versus Reigns thing eventually. But on the way there, you can set him up with a match with maybe Shawn Michaels, maybe Kane, could be even The Rock. Actually, one of the things I have here is that The Rock will come out later in the show to kind of confront Reigns and be like, "What did you destroyed Taker?" And he's like, "Yeah, whatever, I don't care." All that kind of fun stuff that Reigns would do. But make that kind of like an emotional moment between the two where maybe, Reigns fully disconnects himself from The Rock, and that's kind of part of his big heel turn. And he kind of goes through all those legends who are upset at how he destroyed Taker and maybe took Taker out for his entire career. Although, I think more or less Taker will have one last match after this, but against Sting and the Geriatrics match. Just because Sting's putting off his surgery for something like that. Taker could put off his surgery or something like that, although I think he'll get his hip surgery after this, but I don't know if he'll be able to wrestle a simple match with Sting, who's also injured after that. I don't know, but that's kind of where I think that'll go. But at the moment, it'll appear as if Reigns taken out Taker completely. Ended his career, and in just a disrespectful fashion. Which will make everyone hate him even more, and I think that's perfect. If you're going to have someone take out Taker, it should be someone who's going to become a big heel at least for a year. The next match, I think, will be the Raw Women's title match. Bayley versus Charlotte versus Sasha Banks versus Nia Jax. I think Sasha wins this, turning heel on Bayley. And I hope to God that she keeps the title until at least SummerSlam. They've done so many... They've done so many little, title changes between the Raw women that it's insane. It needs to stop. And I think putting in on Sasha Banks as a heel is a good opportunity to stop that, because Sasha Banks is the best women's heel that we've had in years. I know Charlotte is really good, but I think Sasha Banks is even better. And also, if Sasha wins here, it can become kind of a scenario where it's like, Bayley, you never won on your own, and that kind of maybe gives that whole, that room for Bayley to kind of over maybe the year, over the next, 4 or 5 months, struggling with trying to get the title and feeling kind of left out amongst 3 other women on Raw. Even though technically Nia is kind of in that position behind the scenes, but in front of the scenes, Nia is supposed to be this dominant kind of force. The match after that, Shane versus AJ, I think is going to change, because I think Shane's going to be like, you know what, AJ, you're right. You're one of the best there is, and I'm not going to be able to contend with you in a singles match like this. So I got someone better. And, he points down the line, and Shinsuke's music hits, and Shinsuke Nakamura comes out, and it's Shinsuke versus AJ. I know Shane could be in the, and I know most likely it'll be Shane versus AJ, but why? I know, as I mentioned before, that the build-up to this has been good, and I'm somewhat interested in seeing this, but everything AJ said on Tuesday night is true. Shane's done all these big matches before. He's done all this, big over-the-top stuff. But he's not really been involved in a singles match against someone who's really good at wrestling. Not just a pure singles match, no fancy gimmick. And so I think maybe Shane, who's supposed to be kind of the smart guy in the back of his head, maybe he realizes that and, decides to put in Nakamura instead. If that happens, Nakamura will win. If it's Shane versus AJ, AJ will win. That's just the way I see that happening. But I would love to see Shinsuke, or maybe even Kurt Angle brought in. But if Kurt Angle's brought in, I think AJ still wins. So after this is kind of where I think the Rock intermission stuff will happen, and I think that'll be the Rock talking to Reigns or whatever, or maybe even calling him out to the ring to talk about his match with Taker. Whatever. I mentioned that stuff before. The match after this, I think, is Rollins versus Triple H, because Triple H is going to want to be the last of the non-title matches to go on, before the big two main titles, because that's what he does. So, obviously, I think Rollins wins this. Why would you give it to Triple H? You shouldn't. Just give it to Rollins. And I think he debuts a new finisher. Like, I think he hits Triple H with the pedigree. It isn't enough. And then he uses a new move to take him down. And that takes down Triple H for the 3 count. And that's kind of the big reveal of his new finisher, because I really want him to stop using the pedigree. I love Triple H. I do. I know I talk stuff about shit like him, like everyone does, but I think he's a really good wrestler. But I like the pedigree. But really, Triple H is the only person who can use the pedigree. It's just Rollins shouldn't use it. He should use a new move. He's far too creative in the ring to have him be using the pedigree, especially now that, he's at odds with Triple H. So I think that's what's going to happen. Next match, Wyatt v. Orton. Bray Wyatt is probably going to win this. I can't think of a reason why you'd want to have Orton win. So I think Bray Wyatt wins, and I think, that's kind of the big start to the era of Wyatt, because he'll be kind of without supernatural powers as much, and just him as a dominant force. And I think he can do that really well. Last match for the night, it's going to be Goldberg versus Lesnar. Lesnar wins. Done. Why would Goldberg win?